Okay, students, I want to give you a quick little video about the assignment 4. And what we're going to try and do here is to show you the significance of using different lenses when you're taking photographs. Now, of course, this could be a difficult assignment if you have either just one lens, or not quite as bad as that is if you have a cell phone and that's what you're using. But you can still do this assignment with a cell phone for sure. If you have a telephoto lens on your camera, and that could be a point and shoot camera or it could be an SLR, then this is going to be what you can do quite easily. For the first part, you're going to shoot 3 photographs, and what you will do is you'll select something as a subject. You could probably use a person, but what you want to do is you want to take a sequence of 3 photographs and you want to use 3 different lens options. You want to use a wide angle lens, you want to use a normal lens, and you want to use a telephoto lens. Now, I hope you've watched the various videos and understand a little bit about why you use these different lenses. But what we're going to try and show in this exercise is what happens when you do zoom in, for example, and what happens to the subject with these different lenses. Now, if you're using the cell phone, what you're going to do is you're going to zoom using the swipe technique, where you put your fingers on the phone and spread them apart, and that zooms you in. Now, for the first one, what we want to do is we want to have the subject be the same in all 3 photographs, even though you will be using 3 different lenses. Now, you achieve this by getting different distances from the subject. That's what you'll have to do. So in this first one here, this is taken with a wide angle lens. Now, one of the characteristics of the wide angle lens is you see more background. So here's the subject standing here, and we can see the entire road. We can see back here, and quite a bit, really. Now, the subject does look very prominent because of this. Now, let's do the normal lens, which is right here. Now, a normal lens would be a 50mm lens, somewhere around there. And that's basically called a normal lens because that's pretty much what we see with our eyes. Now, in this one, note that the subject is the same size as the first one, approximately. But look at the background here. Instead of seeing all this expanse back here, we've compressed it. And so this bridge, which in this first one is way back there, is much closer. Now, when we get to the telephoto, and again, what you'll do is you will back up in a straight line from your subject until, with your telephoto lens, the subject is approximately the same size as the other 2 images. Now, what happens with the background here? It's incredibly compressed, and that's what telephoto lenses do. And they don't just bring the subject closer to you, they change the background. And as you can see in this highly telephotoed shot, the background is not only really close, pulled up close to the subject, seemingly, but it's also pretty much out of focus. Now, when you're doing certain photographs, you want to have the background out of focus. And everybody asks, well, how do you get that portrait where the background really looks out of focus? Well, one of the techniques you can do to achieve that background distortion is called bokeh or bokeh. And it's a really critical photographic technique to learn, and it's what professionals use all the time. So we've got these 3 shots, same subject size, but we're looking at the background and we're seeing how the background is compressed with a telephoto and it's spread out with a wide angle. Right here is the next series of photographs, And you're basically going to do the same thing, but this time instead of having a full figure subject, you're going to use a head. You're going to do basically a portrait. And so what you want to do is compose a portrait. I kind of recommend using a neutral background here. We're not interested in the background at all in this part of the exercise. What we're interested in is what happens when we use different lenses that will create distortion, because the lenses do have effects on how you look. And so what we're going to do in this sequence, it's going here from the most telephotoed to the most wide down here. So the lower right is the most wide, the upper left is the most telephotoed. There's a video for this, and I hope you've seen it, but these exact photographs are in that video, and it explains which lens in terms of millimeters is used for each one of these shots. But here's the basic thing. With a highly telephotoed lens, the distortion actually can work in your favor a little bit. This is probably a couple 100mm lens, maybe a 300 even, and a 200. But when you get about 100, somewhere between 80 and 120 millimeters is considered sort of the ideal portrait lens. And again, if you're using a mobile camera phone, you just have to do that swipe thing. And now you do have to move, because when you're making the head this size with a long lens, a highly telephotoed lens, you're going to have to be standing back away from the subject. So in both of these exercises, it's really important to give yourself some room. It's not going to be easy to do this at the kitchen table. So these two photographs with the slightly telephotoed are considered the better in terms of using the distortion in your favor. And again, portrait photographers do this all the time. They want a little bit of elongation of the face towards you. It's just more attractive. Now, when you get down here and you start getting into wide angle lens, this is the standard, the normal 50mm lens. And then all three of these are wider. This is a 35mm, and I believe this is a 24, and I think this is a 20. So when you get to this really wide thing, what happens? Well, remember in the background of a really wide thing, it's more expansive, you see more. Well, the same thing's actually happening to the subject. So what happens is the distortion spreads it across wide like this. And it's not necessarily flattering for people to have a wide angle lens, so be careful with that. So you generally want to avoid this unless you're going for kind of a comic effect. This is not only a little bit overly distorted with a telephoto, but it's also hard to do because you're further away. So again, 80 to 120, somewhere in that range is what's good. So for the assignment, you're going to turn in 6 photographs. You're going to turn in 1, 2, and 3. Same subject, same size, but different lenses or different swipe levels on a smartphone. And we're going to see what happens with your backgrounds. Then in this one, you're going to look in terms of a portrait. And you're going to get a head shot, and you're going to do the same kind of thing. I don't think you're going to have 6 different lenses or 6 different telephotos or 8 different telephotos. What you can do though is just 1 extremely telephotoed, 1 normal, and 1 as wide as you can get it. Now with your cell phone, when I'm saying as wide as you can get it, that's where you're going to start from. So it's not going to show you the same extreme distortion in this as a SLR camera will. Hopefully those of you with the SL camera and the zoom lens will see what this is all about. But that's what you do for this assignment. If you have any questions, let me know. The assignment will be due next Tuesday, end of the day. Thanks.